strength, wisdom, energy, attitude, and time. Welcome back to the S.W.E.A.T podcast. Today I've got with me Marc Lobliner. He's an IFBB pro bodybuilder, owner of MTS Nutrition, founder of Tiger Fitness, the creator of the Outright Bar. You may have seen him all over the place, and every time you see him, it's always just amazing. Like, how does this guy stay so jacked and so lean? But there's much more to Marc than that. But first of all, I just want to say welcome to the podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you on today.
It's an honor to be here, man. It's beautiful to talk to people who are smart. Because I talk to a lot of dumb people all the time. It's really good to have smart people involved in my life. I know you guys are smart. And the fact that I heard you had Alan Aragon on here, I've yet to see that episode, but that's a smart guy. And that's a guy that we started out arguing on the message boards back in the early 2000s.
Oh, on bodybuilding.com?
Oh, my God. Yeah, he was... So obviously, you know, for those of you who don't know me, one of the categories the category I brought to the industry, which kind of brought me to the industry, like to be not really a name because we didn't have social media back then. We had message boards, is I popularized the branched chain amino acid intra-workout category. So back before you go to the gym and you'd have people carrying around water jugs or maybe Crystal Light, maybe Gatorade, but the intra-workout nutrition category didn't exist. And so we pioneered branched chains during training, and I believe in branched chains. Alan was more, you know, I don't want to say he doesn't believe in it, more of a skeptic of its value if you have an adequate protein diet. So we would go back and forth, and we actually were friendly. Back then, it was before now, and people were really, we can have debates and intellectual disagreements and still be friends. And so to this day, Alan's my friend. In fact, hold on, let me grab it here. I always keep this crappy book on my desk just to make sure, you know, I always have Alan's book right there in front of me in case I need to, you know, get mad and throw darts at something. Now, Alan's my guy. So shout out to Alan Aragon.
He's a smart guy. He's a good guy too. And the first time that I met him was actually a few months ago in person. We'd communicated online and through text and other ways before that. But yeah, so one of the things that was really cool about him was just something that he overcame, which was his alcoholism and life, especially when it's been a crutch for 15 years. But yeah, I mean, strength is something that we build up over time though. And whether it's professionally, whether it's personally, whether it's physical strength, it's always going to take a lot of time and a lot of repetition to really get where you want to go with it. But all that being said, like, I know that somebody might look at you today and just assume that you've always been jacked, right? It's probably not the case because I don't see too many jacked babies in the NICU, right? What was your first impression? Like, or what was like the first time you saw somebody who was fit and you just decided you want to be like that? What's the story there?
I was a fat kid, you know, I mean, I was always made fun of for being fat, and believe it or not, and a lot of people don't know this because I don't have many features, but I am Jewish. So I don't have, maybe I do, but you can look Jewish. I'm sorry, that's not racist. You can look, my brother looks Jewish as hell. You know, he just does. I didn't get any of the features. So I actually got a lot of stuff, or a lot of, I got teased a lot for two things when I was a kid, and one was for being fat and two was for being Jewish. I wasn't about to change or hide the fact that I'm a Jew, but I didn't want to be fat, and it was horrible, you know. So I always wanted to be at that time skinny. You know, I just didn't want to be fat because at that time the skinny kids, you know, they'd have girls and they'd talk to people. No one made fun of them for being skinny, but everybody used to make fun of me for being fat. And I wasn't like fat. Like, if I was fat nowadays because kids are so fat, like, I would be considered lean by today's standards. But at that time, back in the 80s and the 90s, you know, fat was different, where it wasn't, you know, it was rare to see a fat kid. And like I was one of the only ones. Like, everybody else was in shape. You'd have like me, who's like the semi-fat kid, and then you'd have like the super fat kid that nobody made fun of because everybody knew he was fat, but they'd pick on me, and it was horrible. Like, it was terrible. Like, I used to, I hate to use that, it's pretty extreme, but like almost suicidal thoughts where you feel worthless, and you know, nobody likes you, and you're always made fun of. And for me, I played sports, and luckily, even though I was a little bit chunky, I was always really good at sports. So for me, fitness was just a means to make me better at sports. And that was as a young child. I'm talking like between 7 and 11, right? And then as I got older, I embraced my large frame, my ability to put on mass. And when I first started lifting weights, I gained a lot of good muscle when I really got serious, going into my junior year of high school, I gained 70 pounds of muscle in 2 months over the summer.
Oh
I
my
was that
goodness.
summer kid. And I didn't get taller. I'm the same height I was in 8th grade. So I just got swole. Then it went from being fat to steroid stuff. Everybody's like, oh, he's the guy on steroids. He's the guy on steroids. And I'm like, I didn't know what a steroid was to the point where I went to the doctor. And because the school told me to take a drug test. They didn't believe me. So I'm like, whatever. So I went to the doctor and I said, doctor, I think I'm on steroids. He's like, well, what the hell does that mean? I'm like, well, people keep saying I'm on steroids. I'm like, I thought you could get it from like eating bad chicken. I thought it was like contagious, like a cold or a flu, so I literally went in, doctor's like, okay, hold on. He's like, have you ever injected it? I'm like, people inject that stuff? That's crazy. And, but it worked out. But no, I mean, do I have a propensity to build muscle? Yeah. I mean, anybody who gains 70 pounds of not lean mass, but 70 pounds of anything in
meat.
2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, got stronger, faster, bigger, obviously there's a genetic component to being jacked, but I was a fat kid. What transpired in my body, I don't understand. Normally, as you get older, your metabolism slows down. For me, I actually burn more calories in my 40s than I did in my 20s. I have no idea what scientifically, I can't explain it, even though it's what I do. Most people are like, man, when you hit 40, your metabolism slows down. Like I was, Doug Miller, he's like, well, I can't eat what I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. I'm like, that's crazy. I can eat more. So there's always like, I think the body is not a textbook is something Chuck Rudolph, who's my director of research and development at S.W.E.A.T, he's also still a good friend of mine, moved out to Tennessee right next to me. And he always wrote in our first book we ever wrote, Game Over, The Cut Diet, which a lot of people have read. It was like one of the first competition diet books in the industry in 2005. And we put on the inside cover, the body is not a textbook. And it just isn't. Like, we don't know what's going on with this thing. It progresses, it regresses, it evolves. There's different things you learn about yourself. Maybe I'm doing things that make my metabolism better. Maybe I have more NEAT. Maybe it's because I have a stand-up desk. Maybe all that's adding up where I'm burning more calories. So there has to be an explanation, right? But all I know is that I wasn't always jacked. And the reason, and I don't have orthorexia, anorexia, bigorexia, any of those rexias. I live my life how I want to. I eat foods that I enjoy, which are normally cleaner foods, because cleaner, I know you flexible dieters. What does clean mean? Do you clean it with Windex? No. Clean meaning like fucking chicken and rice and stuff, right? Like crazy old school. But that's the reason I eat that isn't because I don't like fried chicken. I love fried chicken. It's because I whether it's mentally or physically, I operate better on those. I'm able to have more energy. I'm able to train harder. And also with a little bit of IBS still left in my system, I don't enjoy pooping over myself. Like I don't enjoy pooping uncontrollably. So that's why I eat the way I do. So that's kind of the run. I totally ADHD answered that, and I apologize, but that's where I'm at. I went over Chuck Rudolph. I went all over the place, but that's, you invited me. It's your fault.
It paints a picture, Mark. That's what we are. We're artists with our words. But so one of the things I want to touch on in everything that you said there was there ever a part where you might have doubted yourself, right? Because if you're somebody who is a chunky kid, because I was husky, right? I remember we had to buy school uniform clothes in middle school, and I had to go to the husky section. Right. And like my mom was like, oh, look, it has a cool dog on it. I'm like, I know what that means, Mom. I was like, you're not fooling me. Yeah. But like, I get it. And like similar experiences, although I got extremely skinny, right? From being the fat kid. Like my nickname was Drew Carey because I didn't like how I was.
No.
I became the class clown. I had thick glasses and a buzz cut, and not a great way to go through puberty, but it all develops who we are. But all that being said, when I transitioned from running to lifting and doing all these other things, there was never anybody who said that you can't do that, right? You do have to have genetics to do X, Y, Z. Never heard any of that. Never heard anybody talk about steroids. I thought creatine was a steroid. And when I saw somebody in PE class taking it, I was like, whoa, that Jimmy there, he's really hardcore. He's taking that creatine. Ooh. But that's just something I want to touch on. Like, what were your expectations of like fitness and really trying to train even for sports to get better at them when you first got into it? Like, what did you think going into it?
I've surprised myself every step of the way because I'm my biggest hater. And that's why when I get comments online like your arms are small, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's fine. Now I never expected to, especially undersized. Like I'm 5'7" on a good day. And I never expected to be good at football. I never expect to get a pro card in bodybuilding. I try to exude positivity across my social media networks, but to be honest with you, the most surprised person on that stage that day was me. Because it's something that I just don't see myself in that light. I train to win every step of the way, but I expect to lose, if that makes sense. Like everything I do to win, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whether it's family. I don't start something unless I have the expectation of winning, but it still shocks the hell out of me when I actually accomplish something. It's like I'm sitting there and we actually were involved in an acquisition for a majority of one of our companies. And I'm sitting there with one of my partners, and this is literally a time in our life when, we have generational wealth, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. It's crazy stuff because I still look at myself and maybe I act like it too, like a 15-year-old. Like I see myself in the mirror as a 15-year-old, insecure 15-year-old trying to make it through life, trying to figure out what's going on. At that time, I had some very bad issues at home. I was dealing with a mom with a drug problem. I was dealing with a dad who was dying. And I've never grown out of that mindset where it's always survival. And it's driven me into the hospital multiple times. I've been to the hospital twice from exhaustion, from working, not from bodybuilding, not from steroids, not from anything crazy. Oh, it's because of steroids. And it's because I work too much, because I'm so scared. I'm so frightened of disappointing, of letting down my family, of letting down everybody now. It's like, so it's not about like proving the haters right. It's about letting down my family. It's about not making it. And when you're in a situation in life where it's literally life or death, you get that mindset. And for me, I never grew out of it. It's the biggest hindrance and the biggest help. It's a blessing and a curse where I can't get out of my own shadow. And I'm always constantly pedaling a bicycle uphill on the highest gear. And I'm just pedaling and pedaling and pedaling. It seems like the bicycle's never getting higher up that hill. And that's my life in a nutshell. So, you might look into my social media and, oh, wow, he's always happy. And I'm happy as hell, man, because, when you have nothing, and I live in Brentwood, Tennessee, third richest city in America, richest community in Tennessee. I love life. Like my life is fucking awesome, but I'm always afraid of losing it. And right. I can never sit back and just absorb and enjoy. And bodybuilding for me, it's not about having, I'm almost lean by accident. I do it because I love it. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to function in the business world.
Right. It's like serves as an anchor within your life. And it's been similar. Like, obviously, I've never competed in bodybuilding, but I've always tried to look a certain way, feel a certain way, because I feel more confident and feel better about myself. Because I put on 70 pounds my freshman year of college. I was 128 when I graduated, running 70 miles a week, doing cross country and track. I was I wanted to play football because that's just something I wanted to do. Tried in middle school, had knee tendonitis. I was really unathletic. My glasses would fog up and people would just knock me around. It wasn't a good time, but I wanted to avenge that younger self. So yeah, put on 70 pounds, went from 128 to 198, walked onto my school team. And it was an amazing experience. And there was just so much confidence that really came out of that. But at the same time, it is an uphill battle. And nothing in life is guaranteed. And when you've got people that are depending on you, whether it's teammates, whether it's coworkers, family, you name it, those people, they do depend on you, and you do have to show up because, again, nothing is guaranteed. And you think about a lot of things that you hear that are political talking points, right? So people will say that XYZ is a human right. Let's say healthcare. Well, is it? What if you get stranded in a plane crash and wind up in the Alaskan wilderness and break your leg?
Never thought of it.
Do you have the right for somebody to fix you? No, you can't have anything that wasn't made. Whether that's healthcare, whether that's housing, whether that's fitness, anything, right? At some point, you got to own up and take care of it for yourself personally, or do what you need to do in order to contribute that to society. But things don't just exist by accident, and you got to create it. So I understand the pressure; it's real, but that's life.
Yeah, and that's why I really lack empathy for people who make excuses, and it's probably a weakness on my part, where I'm not able to empathize for people who can't be positive and can't take control of their life, and I'm like, well, why not? You know, it's like people are like, I can't stop. Well, what do I? When people ask questions, because I'm not a therapist. You know, I'm a bro. I'm a coach. I'm a strength coach. I'm a youth coach. So if my kid comes to me, coach, I want to run faster, I'm like, let's go train.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and kids are great. I've never had a kid tell me they can't put down the bread. Never. I've never had a kid tell me they can't stop eating junk food. If any of my kids that I coach, and we coach a lot of, you know, D1 prospects, a lot of full teams, you know, every one of my kids, whether a boy or a girl, whatever you want to call yourself, they come in to the gym. They're like, I want to go D1. I'm like, here's what you need to do. Done. And they do it. Adults, and that's why I'm so happy. Everybody's like, this next generation. I'm like, dude, I'm coaching this next generation. They're going to be awesome. Like, these kids are going to be amazing. My daughter's generation is going to rule the fucking world in such a great way. I'm so excited about the kids who are coming up through junior high and high school right now, because I've dealt with them, not just locally, I've dealt with them around the region. So unless Tennessee is producing some Uber Captain Americas, we're in a good spot. But like adults, and it's because we've made them fucking soft. They're pussies. You know, it's like, oh man, I cheated on my diet. It's like, why? I couldn't help myself. Like, you couldn't put the food in your mouth. I'm like, are you married? Well, yeah. Okay. Are you faithful to your wife? Yeah. Did you see attractive women during the day? Yeah. Do you go up and just start dry humping their leg? No. I'm like, that takes self-control. Use the stuff that helps you prevent humping someone's leg, and don't eat the fucking cookie. You know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, put the cookie down. It's
now.
Like, so for me, I lack empathy, but I understand that people have different vices, and, you know, food is not only emotional, but it elicits this. It gives you control over something. Like, I can do this, I can eat this, or I cannot eat this. So it's how you want to, you know, exert that power to utilize that control. So, you know, I just, yeah. So my main issue is, since I have overcome such bullshit, I normally lack empathy for people who don't have much going on. Like, I've seen people throw crying tantrums because Starbucks ran out of coconut creamer. You know, it's like, dude, harden the fuck up. And I think that our convenience society, and we have it so good where poor people now would have the luxuries of rich people back 100 years ago. Like, poor people have air conditioning, electricity, plumbing, like
iPhones. Access to all human information in your pocket.
You cross the border and America gives you a free fucking iPhone. Like, you're an illegal immigrant, you're breaking the law, and they're like, hey, here's a smartphone. It's like, dude, like, that's like $1,000 phone. So it's just one of those where I think we just have it so good that people become soft. But for some reason, I'm seeing, at least in athletes. Now, athletes have always been exceptional, but man, I'm seeing the next generation, like the Gen Z, the millennials, they're all soft, right? Like, I think this next generation, I think they're going to turn the corner for us. I really do.
Well, I know the saying is beat to death in our circles, but it's the old hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times, and the cycle goes on. And so you think about the generation of like our grandparents, right? The greatest generation. They're the ones who fought in World War II and won it, and they came from their parents were in the Great Depression, you know, the Dust Bowl, all these different things. It was hard times, and it made for some hard people. But those people, they built this amazing world that we live in. And you just think about, even if you want to like kind of look into the greater historical significance of the end of World War II and the establishment of the U.S. dollars, the world's reserve currency, and all these things that you could talk about, it put us here in the continental United States in the most amazing position that any civilization in human history has ever been in. And somehow we're managing to screw that up. I mean, you're starting the race like with 1 foot over the finish line and still tripping. It's incredible.
Well, I mean, I'd hate to be that guy to go there, but I post about it a lot. I don't care. The problem is we lack men. you look at the inner city. In the inner city, I believe it's amongst, it's amongst black families in the 60s, which was obviously not very good with civil rights. We had the civil rights movement. You had people being mowed down with fire hoses. You had separate but equal, well, not even equal, separate water fountains, separate this, separate. It was horrible. Yet 77% of children had a dual parent household. Now we're down to about 21%, I believe it is. And the problem is we lack men in society, and we've softened men, and the feminist movement and everything like that has softened men. So you don't have anybody taking charge. Now, I'm not saying, now my wife runs a lot of our businesses. My wife is extremely talented at what she does. She's smarter than me, but there's a biological role that men have in society as leaders and as fathers. And as soon as we said that we don't need men, that we can have just some skinny jean wearing little bitches that are gonna mold our society, that's when it came about. When it became uncool to be a man, to be masculine, to do man shit, to say, hey, my goal as a father, as a man, is to support my family, is to provide for my family, is to discipline my children, is to get out there and teach. That's when society started falling apart. And we get into all the conspiracy theories about how it's engineered and this and that. But here's the deal. If you look at what's happening right now, it's all, and the best, I think the best movement that never really happened was, remember the Million Man March? If you look at it, it was for black men, put together by some people with some really weird histories, right? Like Sharpton and Jackson. But if you look at how that march started, it was basically for men to take charge, take control of their world. It was to bring back the role of the man. It was to bring back the patriarchy, as they so gleefully insult it. Look, at the end of the day, men need to do men's stuff. And that's not saying women can't do what men can. Women can be amazing CEOs. I have a female CEO that's the most talented person I've ever worked with. But in the role of the family, in the role of society, men have a definite position that they are weakening. And you look at testosterone levels, you've seen that. Testosterone levels have dropped. And everybody's pointing to plastic and all this. I think it's because men don't need testosterone. I think testosterone, your body's almost innately and evolutionarily saying, we don't need this shit anymore. Like, we're not doing man stuff anymore. We're just going to be weak. Or maybe my skinny jeans are too tight on my balls. Either way, I think that we have a situation where we need to have men become men again. And that fixes a lot of things. If you talk about World War II, like you brought up, the thing is, who was over there storming the islands? Who was over there? That was the men. That was the men. So I'm not saying, again, for 99% of things, women can do a just as good or a better job. But in biological roles, and I'm big on biology, men need to do men's stuff. I'm sorry if that's not even political. That's just what I think.
Right. I mean, think about evolutionary biology, right? So we could kind of tie that in there. So if you think about it from a population and reproduction standpoint, it would make sense for a species like humans where there's a lot of resource allotment when it comes to energy and time and danger for a woman to carry a pregnancy through to term, right? Especially if you're looking at pre-medicine times. So women are a precious, precious part of society and something that needs to be protected. Whereas a guy, you know, all it takes to reproduce and create the next generation of humans is a good time. Right? And then you can go get hit in the head with a rock and it's no big deal. Humanity lives on. And so I think that's a huge part about kind of how humans are wired the way that we're wired and why society evolved the way that it did. And you see these different roles take place where men are the warriors. You know, you have denser bones, more neuromuscular connection, thicker, bigger muscles, bigger frames. Like you're made more for combat and defense and offense. Yes. And women are more biologically suited to motherhood, right? There's you know a Q angle, right? The angle of the hips.
Oh, you're speaking my language, my man.
There's so many things that you could go to that just there are differences between men and women. And in my lifetime, it became unfashionable to say that. But it's not to say that those differences mean that, well, those differences mean that men are inherently superior to women. It's like, no one's saying that. It's just we're different. Yeah. That's it.
In certain things we are, and in certain things women are superior. I can argue all day that women make better managers. My experience is phenomenal. Like my experience with female managers, and I'm someone, you know, I haven't had a boss in almost 20 years, right? 18 years. No, even longer. Like I was 20. So it's been about 18 years, 19 years. And right now I'm looking and I have a female. It's more of a partner, right? But I'm like, wow, this is the best management style I've ever seen. It could just be an individual. I mean, I'm not going to say every CEO is going to be as good as mine. Like, right. Like and obviously there's shitty male CEOs and great male CEOs. But what I'm getting at is being a female doesn't inherently it just gives you different traits, different talents, different whatever. And men are superior at certain things. Like if you've ever watched, one time I went to a soccer game, it was a doubleheader. It was the Red Stars and the Fire in Chicago. And the Chicago Fire played first and they were running really fast. And then watching that first and watching the Red Stars play was like watching a slow motion game. Men are bigger, stronger, faster, and they kick the ball a lot harder. They just are. It is what it is. And my daughter is a standout soccer player, every powerlifter in the state of Tennessee. But she'll even tell you if she goes and plays high school soccer, it's going to be a mismatch. Even if the dude doesn't even lift, like men just are. That's what we do. Women, again, they have a beautiful thing. They can literally create a life within their stomach. That's insane. They can nurture. They can feed you through their boobs. Men can't breastfeed unless they're on Tren. Because I heard Tren causes you to lactate. I took Tren and I never lactated, and I was kind of disappointed.
You missed out on one of life's wonders, Mark.
Yeah. I just, everybody's like, I saw this thing on Twitter. Like, I got to admit, it was like this dude trying to breastfeed, and of course the right's like, this is crazy, and then they memed it. And I'm like, just give that man some Tren and some Deca.
Problem solved.
He'll be through the roof. He'll be lactating in no time. No haters. Would that be edible milk though? Because I know the milk changes. I know this is way beyond but like the milk goes colostrum and then it goes slightly like different. So it's less nutrient dense as the baby grows. What is the nutrient makeup of men's breast milk when they take Tren? Can you find that out?
I think we just figured it out, Mark. That's the steroids you were thinking about when you were younger. That's what it is. It's Tren milk.
Tren milk. I want to know what comes out of male breasts when they take Tren or Deca. I need to know this. So somebody, wherever you're watching this, I need you to comment. I need you to look this up.
Yeah, we're expanding the scientific literature with what is truly important.
Has anybody evaluated that nutritional information?
What are the macros for Tren
I want to
milk?
know if someone sent that over like Microbac Labs. Like, hey, what's in this? So what is it? Just test it. You
just have black SUVs roll up to your front door immediately after.
Here's $5,000. Let us know what's in this. Just we need to know. I need to find some male who's lactating, get their breast milk, and I need to send it off to Microbac Labs in Pennsylvania and see what's going on. That's my next goal. That's my next checklist.
Yeah. So Mark. Oh, I'm just trying to. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna loop this back in a little bit.
Sorry,
that was an amazing little rodeo that we just went on. But
Welcome,
like, kind of like tying back into the future and talking about kids and stuff. Like me and my wife, we're in the process of making more people for this planet.
How many do you have?
0. So I gotta get my
you
count up.
Start at 1.
Yeah, we're working on number 1 right now.
Well, it's always fun to work at it. And then they actually come out. Then you have no time to work at it anymore.
Yeah, then it's the real work. So yeah, I'm enjoing that part of the journey.
Sex is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's part of life. And like
Big fan of sex.
What?
I'm a huge fan of sex. I like it a lot.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something else there at the end. Never
My wife
mind.
just looked at me. She's in the office across from me. She's like, "What are you talking about?"
This is a very odd podcast.
Yeah, it is. Welcome to my world. Again.
Yeah, but anyway, so that being said, like, having kids of my own one day, I know as a kid, the whole concept of exercise was alien to me because no one in my family did it. And there was a couple of times like my dad would try to like make me just like run laps around the house because grandpa farted or something like that. But like any kind of exercise was just terrible. I hated it. It sucked. Like everything about it made me uncomfortable. Like I was a little softy, I did not like it. So if you were my coach, right, and you had a kid like me that was just clueless and averse to exercise, how do you open the door for that kind of kid?
Man, you know what? So we have an opportunity to coach kids who come into Legacy of Carbon, and it's in Franklin, Tennessee. And some of them, their parents are just, hey, do something with my kid. They don't want to work out. Honestly, it's about positive affirmation and making it fun. For my kids, it was pretty easy. Like you're gonna be fine. And here's why: because you work out. Our kids, they knew that in the morning we took them to the gym, and if it was our gym, if we owned the gym, they could just hang out and do whatever they want to do. And if it was a like an LA Fitness or something, they'd go into childcare and whatever. So our kids know that your day always includes exercise. They don't know any better. They have no idea what's going on. And then here's the kicker: be a good dad and mom. Obviously, my wife is amazing playing with the kids, but like my kids, it was like I'm stir crazy. Obviously, you can tell I haven't stopped moving the whole time. Like I'm like, let's go to the park. And if it was raining outside, we'd literally go to McDonald's play place and go in the slides because we didn't have as much indoor space. Like right now, my house is big enough we could put a wrestling mat upstairs and wrestle. Just play with your kids. It's pretty fucking simple. Kids love playing. Kick a soccer ball at them, see what happens. Throw a baseball at them, hit them in the face with it a few times. That happens too. Just be active, be there. And that's the thing, is that we never really had to, my kids just exercise. Like my daughter she has soccer 5-6 days a week, depending. And then she knows that when she doesn't have a game, she knows that she goes to the gym, she does things, she programs it. She's the youngest Exos trainer ever. My sons know it's time to work out. My youngest son, he knows that if he has to do something during the day. So I'll literally be like, where'd he go? He's downstairs on the True Form treadmill working on his running form. And he's 9. So it's like, you just, monkey see, monkey do. Kids, at the end of the day, their brains are forming. Like every day they're creating these neurons and their neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to basically create new thoughts and everything. Neuroplasticity is, what do you call it? Your brain's malleability, so to speak. So, God, I don't want to explain malleability. Hopefully you're Google it, guys. So, kids are, I'd hate to say this, they're stupid in that they have no preconceived notion. They're a blank slate. Like you don't have a kid who's born lazy. You have a kid who's created lazy. I'm not very John Locke on this. John Locke was the clean slate guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not him. I'm actually John Locke I'm John Locke. My bad. I am John Locke. I think kids are a clean slate. So if you raise them in a household that drinks alcohol, they're going to think alcohol is socially acceptable. If you raise them in a household that exercises every day, they're going to think that's what everybody does. They just know their universe. They don't know anything else. So my wife and I, we had our last drink in front of them at 1 year old before my daughter even could friggin' remember anything. And then we tried to be our best. Obviously I curse and I'm not perfect, but I'd say my kids are kicking ass right now. They have their problems. Like my 14-year-old boy's a bit of a smart ass, but overall they're well adjusted. They exercise, they're in shape. They play multiple sports, all of them. And it's not because I know what I'm doing. I have no fucking idea how to parent. I'm not nurturing at all. I'm not good at cuddling. I don't like cuddling. I don't like nurturing. What I do know is that when my kids are home, we do stuff. We're active. We go for walks, and that's just who we are. So what I would do, and if you came into my facility, immediately we'd start having fun and working and playing games. And then we work on, you wouldn't even know you're working. Hey, skip. And I'll skip with you, different things, different motoring skills. If you have a kid who's in his teens and I'm going to teach him how to deadlift, you don't just go, oh, that's terrible form. You focus on the positive. Kids love positive reinforcement. So as a coach, whether I'm coaching football, baseball, or strength or movement, conditioning, speed, I never, ever shit on a kid. I'm never like, that's terrible. You do the shit sandwich, right? Like, it's like, hey,
oh, yeah,
the shit sandwich is great. You know what, man, you killed that right there. But you know what? Your feet were a bit off. Can you just a little bit, just like 20 degrees on your left foot? And by the way, that you stuck the landing. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it's a shit sandwich. Life is a big shit sandwich. If you present things in a shit sandwich, it usually works out well. That's the parenting tip I have, and a coaching tip as well. And don't be negative. Negativity does not work for kids. It just makes them hate themselves. It makes them hate life. And it's not going to make them, it's going to make them quit is what it's going to do.
Right. And that's something that I think we really want to avoid instilling in people, is the idea that there's something wrong with you. Because just think about just kind of going back to the world that we live in today. There's so many people where they'll get locked up in an identity, right? So it could be like, oh, I'm poor, right? And I'm disadvantaged because of whatever. And that's what they see themselves as. And so just knowing what broke is, because there's a big difference between being broke and being poor. It's all mindset. It's the same thing with being fat. Right? Because you could say, I am a fat person. And if that's what you are at your core identity, you will always find a reason to remain fat. And
Yeah.
so you just kind of start to change those beliefs. And I really do think that positive reinforcement is important, because it's the same thing too. Because like I was kind of like John Locke, a little bit of a blank slate even as a teenager. Because when
Yeah.
I first made the decision, oh, I want to try to walk onto a Division I college football team with no experience, as a like 128-pound kid who was running cross
Mhm.
country, a little bit of an insane person thing to do, but nobody told me that. You
Yeah.
know, I might have, if I had better social skills, I probably could have like picked up on some of the visual cues. I'm like, what is this kid doing here? But
Yeah.
you know,
Smart.
my strength coach believed in me, right? He saw the way that I showed up, he saw the way that it worked, and he saw me put on 70 pounds in a semester. And you know, I was working hard, got stupid strong, got faster, like started gaining all these different athletic skills that I never knew I could have, and that all translated in the rest of the life. But yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think that there really has been an intentional attack on the family, the traditional family, where you
Absolutely.
have a mom and a dad, and by taking the dad out of the household and replacing them with the state, right, and letting the government raise your
Mhm.
kids, that's contributing to, I think, so many of our societal ills. You know, like there's so
Absolutely.
many ways you could point there's so many different ways you could point your fingers as to what's to blame. But you can see measurable shifts, and like one of them was in 1971. I mean, obviously that's like kind of going down a slightly different path, but literally taking the dollar off the gold standard and getting rid of real money. And once we start having
Absolutely.
fake money allows for the powers that be to pump resources, attention, etc., into whatever they want. And if they don't want family, well, get rid of the family's ability to save, because it's like generational wealth, right?
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
you better freaking learn how to invest and start to understand how you're going to beat raging inflation and collapsing
Absolutely.
markets. So like I get pedaling uphill. That's what it feels like, you know. But the thing is, you
Yeah.
know, circumstances be damned, you make your own opportunities.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that we're not going to affect what the government does. We just have to kind of roll with the punches and do the best we can in the environment we are given. And that's, if people worry about this, they spend all this time, they're fighting with each other on Twitter, and I do it. It's kind of fun. But at the end of the day, man, we can't control what's going on in DC. We're not. We're just one person. We can vote. That's about it. We can get active. We can run ourselves. You could be a candidate. But at the end of the day, all we can do is work and maneuver around the circumstances that are around us. And look, man, I really hate the government we have right now. I think Biden is one of the worst human beings to ever walk this earth. It's not because he's old and decrepit, it's because he's a horrible racist individual. I hate him. I've always hated him. But what am I going to do? Like, well, what about the other guy? I'm like, I didn't like him either. So what are we going to do? You can't do much other than hope that something changes and maybe be the catalyst for change. Maybe run for office yourself. Maybe, go out and vote in the primary for someone you want to win. And I'm not going to go into the whole election. Oh, they're stealing our votes. Whatever. That's, again, can't control that either. All I know is that right now we're all given the same thing. We're all dealing with hyperinflation. We're dealing with a president who doesn't know where he is. We're dealing with potential World War III right now. And all we can do is control our own surroundings. So that's why I tell people, if you don't like living in California because you don't like the political climate, move. If you don't like living in Florida because you like communism, move. If you don't like where you live, that's the beauty of the United States, is that it's 50 sovereign states. And sovereign means it's basically a country within a country. Like we're not like England or the UK. We're not like Australia. We're not like Spain. We're 50 individual sovereign countries or states that basically have a union, where if we get attacked, and we have some infrastructure built in there as well, in that we come together, we're a union. Like, America is a union of states. So all you could do, focus on your community, focus on your family, and make a difference where you can, because you could beat yourself up all day long, and there's no way you're ever going to get past what's going on externally. And we're never going to live in a perfect world.
Oh no, never have, never will. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go in human history, you're always going to find trouble. But I do think one of the most important things that we can do is have these types of conversations where
Mhm.
we can speak openly. And I mean, that's what the First Amendment's for, right?
Yeah,
So we can have the
we
freedom
still
to
have
have
that.
these kind of conversations. And, I'm sure people are bound to get offended one way or another. But at the same time, like, you may be offended, but I'd still love to give you a hug and sit down and have a conversation with you. Because that's what this is about. Because there's things that you know
Absolutely.
that I don't know, and things I know that you don't know. And if we never talk to each other, we're both going to live poorer lives as a result of it. Mark, it's been an absolutely fantastic conversation. We're definitely going to have a follow up in part two because I know people are going to be talking about this and they're going to want to hear more because it's just good, honest conversation. But before we head off, where can people find you at?
So if on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Tiger Fitness. Everywhere else, it's at Marc Lobliner, MarcLobliner. And of course, tigerfitness.com. That helps pay my bills.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody support Mark. Go follow him, check him out. And we'll get you on the Ibble app too so people can follow you there as well. All right, Mark, I know you got to go, but it's been an amazing conversation. Have an awesome rest of your day, my friend.
Thank you so much, brother. Take care.